Hi, this is Christy from Inklings and Yarns, and I'm just going to show you today how to do that ruffled brim on a baby hat. So what I've done is I've made my hat in double crochet, and the double crochet tends to get a little bit loose toward the end, and especially when you're going to put this big thick brim on it, it tends to really pull the end of the hat outward, so it doesn't fit as well, I find sometimes. So what I like to do is before I actually start the brim, I'm going to do one row of single crochet, and the single crochet is just a tighter stitch that seems to just hold the hat together a little bit better than if you skip this row. It doesn't add a lot more length because this single crochet is really small, and it just gives you a nice starting point for the brim. So I'm going to go all the way around, and then we'll start the brim once this single crochet row is done. Okay, so now I am finishing up that row of single crochet just with a quick slip stitch. And now I'm ready to really start that brim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase on every stitch, which means I'm just going to do 2 double crochets into each single crochet in the previous row. So I'm going to start with my chain of 3, and I'm a little bit weird. I count my chain as the last stitch in the row instead of my first stitch in the row, and it's just because of the way the holes sort of line up on the baby hat. I think it looks a little bit more even that way. Everybody kind of has their quirks, and that's mine. So you can see I'm just doing 2 stitches into each single crochet here. So I just did the one, and I'm going to go right back into that same stitch and do my second, and I'm going to keep doing that on every single stitch all the way around. Okay, so now I'm almost finished this row, and I'm just going to do 1 double crochet into that last stitch, and then I'm going to join it to my chain, which, remember, I count that as my last stitch rather than my first stitch, so that's why I'm only doing 1 double crochet at the end here instead of 2. So I'm joining those, and then I'm going to chain my 3, and I'll show you here why I count that chain as the last stitch. So this stitch down here is the last stitch on the row before, and you can see how the chain is sort of rising right out of that. So if I tried to do just 1 double crochet into my next stitch and call that my first 2 stitches, then I'd end up putting 2 more stitches in here, and it would look a little bit cluttered, and over here it looks a little bit too empty with that hole there. So instead I add my second stitch right in there, and I'm going to go again in this row doing 2 double crochets into each double crochet. And what that does, oops, try that again. What that does is it just helps the brim flare out even more. So you can see, looking at the hat, that this first row of double crochets all around really makes the brim start to stand out from the end of the hat. And as I add more rows of continuing to double, it will make that looping pattern that you see in the final picture on the blog.